Hey, you're listening to Blindsight. Let's go. Mental health isn't something to take lightly. It's time to fight. It's time to thrive. Let's do this.
Hello there. Welcome to Blindsight. And we are hosted, and I say host with plural, with myself, Bill Lundgren, and Jonathan Price, who, he's been co-hosting so much, we decided to make it official. So anyway, how are you, Jonathan?
I'm good. As we're recording this, it's Friday the 13th, so I'm a little frazzled. I had all the good intentions of taking my kids to get donuts, which we did. But then my son decided to spill his iced tea all over himself, making us late for school anyway. So it was like, I kind of don't get it. What's going on here?
Yeah, but welcome to it's Friday. And then I lost the connection with Jonathan before we were starting, and I thought, oh, God.
Yep.
If Jonathan hadn't reminded me it was Friday the 13th, it wouldn't have happened.
But see, that's such a funny thing because it's such a stigma. It's such a funny... We get in our own ways when it comes to these funny little superstitions and things like that. And truly, Friday the 13th is just, any other day.
Right,
but
right.
Sometimes when it's what you manifest, what you think or what your mind focuses on expands. And it's just...
But you see, we're always looking for reasons that things are happening.
Oh, yeah.
The fact that it's Friday the 13th gives us a reason for disasters happening. Now, when disasters happen on the 14th, we say, well, it's,
Yeah, we don't give any credence to the 14th or the 12th or anything. It's just Friday the 13th, and you got to thank Hollywood for that one.
So watch yourself all day until after midnight tonight.
Let's hope we make it to midnight. Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, today I wanted us to talk about really social isolation and the role that the caretaker can do in solving or possibly getting in the way of our dealing with social isolation. Because, the caretakers care about us, and sometimes they think they know better than we do what we need. And I know when I was a kid, the primary thing in those days, I didn't know that I was going to lose my sight, but my mother was very aware of my hearing difficulty, and she really debated back and forth whether I should be in the Boy Scouts because they'd be taking me camping and things like that. And, and it might damage my hearing and so forth. But she made a decision, I think a wise one, to let me do that, at least have that experience. I wasn't exactly a great scout, but, at least I had the experience and say that I did that. But, it's really tough to be a parent to a child who has a disability because a parent gets real frightened and wants to have the best experience for us and not to damage our psyche, so to speak. And at the same time, in doing that, by making, and this is where caretakers have to be very careful in making decisions for us. They may make decisions from their sighted advantage rather than encouraging us to try things out and find other ways to be able to maneuver without sight or minimum sight. And also, but you see, caretakers, this is the really complicating factor, and I saw it time and time again when I was working with couples, that there's also a sense of control that caretakers may decide they want to have. And I saw this real clearly with when I worked with a couple where the husband was recovering from alcoholism, and she, of course, was so grateful he was not drinking and so forth. And And as we went along, the session stopped, and I found out not long afterwards that she decided to divorce him. And lo and behold, about 6 months later, through the grapevine, I found out she married another alcoholic. She couldn't handle someone who could be independent. And that taught me a lot. And that's one of the, but you see, she didn't know that. And we didn't identify it. And so sometimes caretakers get their goodies from being the ones in charge of us without realizing it. And we sometimes have to deal with that. And sometimes we have to identify it. And sometimes if we're the person with the disability, we feed into that, because as long as we have somebody else taking care of us, we don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
And yet that's the most damaging part, is that we don't even try because we got somebody else who'll step in. And the problem being that, depending on the caretaker, that person may not be around forever.
Right.
And also we are denied the experience of getting out of social isolation, getting out there, meeting other people, trying different things, kind of pushing the limits of our disability.
Yeah.
And
this is such a weird topic because you really touch on two different aspects. One, codependency or lack thereof, and advocacy. So you're trying to pair two things that don't really go together with this dynamic. And if you have a caretaker who is always either wanting to be, I say always, but if you have a caretaker who wants to be in control,
right,
pair it up with somebody who is either not okay with somebody being in control, or even worse, somebody who enjoys not control, just being controlled.
right.
That might be able to work until it becomes an abusive situation, potentially.
But you see, the thing is, when I go to a social gathering, if there's one codependent attending the same gathering, that person makes a beeline for me. And a codependent person I do not want.
Right.
And yet that person says, oh, this person is disabled. I'm going to, take, this is the prospect. No. But you see that, and then, we almost have a bullseye on our back. To the person who's codependent. We can smell it, and they say, okay, there we go.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to ask, let's hang out here for a second, because I have an odd question. How would you decipher between somebody who is a person of codependency versus somebody who is a natural helper and wants to genuinely help you, not necessarily control you? How do you distinguish that?
Well, it takes a little time. Because, and it's kind of like, you have to be wary. I was began a relationship with someone I was sure was a codependent.
Yeah.
And, I just gotten out of the training center and said, be independent, don't let anybody take, all that kind of thing. And I was ignoring the fact that I needed some assistance.
Yeah.
And the person, I'm so grateful that that he's stuck with it and kind of like put up with my trying to be independent and so forth. And we worked out. No, we were both being helpful to each other. This is the key. In other words, it wasn't a codependency one side. It was a relationship where being with me, he was doing far more than he was doing up till then, and getting out and doing some things with me. And at the same time, because of the relationship, I was feeling more secure to be able to try things out, and knowing that I wasn't going to be taken over. And it really is something that you don't immediately identify unless the person comes on and, at that party and starts wanting to chew my food for me.
Gross.
Then I know, no. I don't think this is going to work. But it's a matter of time and being aware of what you need. This is the toughest part, I think, for people with any kind of disability, is trying to figure out, well, how much do I really need, and how much freedom do I need to have? Because
right, it's that.
The only way we find out is trying it out.
Well, the desire for autonomy.
Yeah.
But you still sometimes need help. It's a fine line. It's a funny thing.
Yeah. It's real tough to draw that boundary. And now that I'm older, I need, let's face it, I need a little more help. And the other thing that sort of changed the dynamics, I think, for a lot of people was the pandemic, because a lot of people got very comfortable creating a very small world, and then when the world opened up again, they said, "Oh no, this is comfortable," and there's a routine, and I'm not sure that I don't think it's been that good for me.
Yeah,
because I'm having to relearn some of the stuff that I'd forgotten. I was without a dog for a year, so I forgot. When I got Aiden, and we arrived here, I had to relearn all the things I learned about the park area where we live to be able to give him adequate direction.
Right.
And we're still working on that. But the point
right.
is, it's a relearning after being in a very comfortable, don't have to go anyplace kind of environment. And even now I'm finding, I used to be able to do this. I can probably do it now, but how did I do it before? So it's a relearning process. And fortunately, there's some people there who would love to take over. But I remember now, no, I can't have that. But at the same time, I have to have the courage, and this is a toughie for men, to do this thing called ask for help.
Oh, yeah.
I don't care how disabled you are. If you're a male, you're really going to be, it's almost like the stuttering to say,
yes.
I need help.
Yeah. Well, there's you're talking about this kind of independence, but I think of it more of like a empowerment over pity. And I don't know how many blind people that I've come across who they don't want to be pitied or like seen through a lens of that helplessness.
Right.
And when the focus should really be on what they can do rather than what they can't do. But, even before being seen as somebody who's blind, all these people, you included, you want to be seen as humans with, these passions and dreams and all these personalities. And it's important to be able to have that autonomy and that empowerment.
Absolutely.
Because you don't want the pity, because, in a couple of weeks, we're going to be talking about blindness being a superpower and how much there really is that's really neat about being blind. Sure, you don't do things the same as maybe a lot of the societal things would suggest, but when you adapt and you build a way for your own self to enjoy life to the fullest, you become so empowered. And then you can talk to your caretakers and say, or your partner, maybe you don't even need a caretaker. Yeah. And it's you become fully engrossed in yourself and your abilities, and it becomes so beautiful to see that.
Oh, absolutely. And I am a little puzzled sometimes when people say, I'm amazed at the things that you do. And I said, huh?
Yeah.
And because I don't think it to be that major, except the fact that I'm not in an institution, which I think a lot of people think,
Sure.
we're supposed to be.
Right.
And I have a dog who, when I give him a command, I just have this sense he was rolling his eyes that Daddy's giving me the wrong directions again. And he sort of humbles me because, he follows my directions and we get lost. So, I haven't quite mastered the blindness thing. But, I keep getting reminded of it. But the important thing is to be able to be out there and try things and experiment and see, because the thing that I know they taught us in training center, you can do anything you want to do. You just need to do it differently.
That's right.
Now, I remember one night at the center, some of my fellow students were in my apartment, and they were arguing about this. You can do anything you want to do. You just need to do it differently. Well, how would a blind person rob a bank? And it went round and round. And the only thing I could contribute is, I would have to change my dog's hair color so nobody would recognize him. But we were joking about it. But the fact is, there is that thing we can do, whatever it is we want to do. It's just we have to figure a different way to do it. And this is when somebody goes through the training center and then goes home to the family. The family, yes, I've been really a big proponent of having a family training program. And you remember one of our guests talked about the VA having a family program. I think that is so important to teach the family to let go.
That's hard.
And that is hard because you're afraid the person is going to get hurt. You're afraid that they might even get killed, that you might lose the person. And you think the only way is for them to put cotton around them so they don't hurt themselves. And getting hurt is sometimes part of what we need to learn.
Yeah. When I was thinking about kind of this topic and being with a caretaker and dealing with that social isolation aspect, how often is it that people who are either blind or they're in a wheelchair or, whatever it is, rely so heavily on their caretaker that the social isolation becomes dependent upon the caretaker to issue that socialization.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you do in that situation?
I can't go to this thing without a caretaker to help me meet somebody or talk to somebody or just to be at this event or whatever. And sometimes, and you see, here it's a really difficult thing because for some people, the degree of impairment is such they do have to have a caretaker there.
Right.
But the caretaker may have to make a decision to step in the background.
That's right.
Get the person there, and it's a very delicate balance.
Well, and at that time, the caretaker at that point becomes a coach rather than a caretaker because they're pushing them into these social situations. They're saying, hey, I'm going to encourage you to go meet, Joe and Sally and, Benny and all these people, and you're going to have such a fun time. And then you kind of take a step back and you coach them in those situations rather than mothering over them.
And make a decision in terms of when to step out of the picture and allow the friends to take over. And this is, again, it's a delicate balance. Fortunately, I'm able to live independently and so forth. But I do, when I'm going to the theater or whatever, I have had so many problems with the taxi service that, and I like going to some of these things with someone.
Oh, yeah.
So the idea that somebody goes there, drives, and we go to the theater and we enjoy the show, and I get a ride back. But more than that, I use that as a way to get to know people, particularly people who are new to me. I say, hey, Well, as I think we talked about last time, how about some coffee? And so the person picks me up. We go to the coffee shop. We sit down and talk and get to know one another. It's easier for me if someone can pick me up and we go together.
Right.
So that's problem is solved, and I have the opportunity to spend with the person.
Yeah.
And build that friendship.
Absolutely. You were talking about that, like that support independence, rather than doing everything for them as a caretaker. It's really the encouragement of getting that person, if you're blind or whatever, to encourage them to try things on their own.
Right.
And because sometimes as a caretaker, if you're a family member, there's a protection element to it.
That's right.
But as a professional caretaker, there is an enable, like I'm going to enable you to do something that's amazing kind of mindset.
Right.
And you have to pay attention very carefully to, if you can, what their intention is, because professional caretakers, yes, they're there to help and support you and to, actually take care of some of those needs that you may or may not be able to do on your own. But really, they're there to enhance your life and enhance your social interaction. And so being able to advocate on behalf of you is very important for a very real caretaker. Your family and friends may have a different mindset when it comes to that, because they want to protect you. They want to keep you safe. They want to, which is fine. That's in and of itself is a very noble and kind thing to do. However, they can take that a little bit too far and manipulate situations or put you in situations that can actually do more harm than good.
Yeah.
And it's a very, very, very fine line between that caretaker and somebody who's wanting to kind of control that situation.
And it's important for us to pay attention to that as well as the caretaker, because we're the ones that have to set the rules here. And one of the things now, I know that some of my, the people I went through the training center with and the training center staff who are probably cringing at the idea of my asking somebody to, when we're going for coffee to pick me up, because the philosophy is, and I think that the philosophy is well-founded, do it yourself. Get there to the coffee shop by yourself. Don't depend on anybody doing it, because that sets up a pattern. And I'm sort of back and forth about that, I know one of the staff people from AfterSight came down to have coffee with me and talk about, about a number of things. And I worked with Aiden to be able to walk to the coffee shop. And we did it. But it was a training kind of thing. It was good that I did it. And then I got a ride back. But the point is, where is that line? And I think that's an individual decision that we have to make. Okay, is it better for me to find that coffee shop by myself and get used to that, or to be picked up and taken to the coffee shop?
Well, that also talks directly to communication. Like if I came down and I said, hey, Bill, let's go to coffee. And I said, Bill, do you want me to pick you up, or do you have a way to get over there? Or do you want me to find somewhere that's close to you? Do you know somewhere that's close to you that you would feel comfortable walking to? Like, communicate that. There's nothing
Giving a
wrong
bunch
with
of options, and I can decide. Well,
nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. I want a sedan chair with runners, like they had to take me directly there.
Give me a champagne flute in the back, some nice Barry Manilow playing. Oh my gosh.
But you see, it is, part of it is our own doing. That is for us to keep in mind that we need to spread our wings. We need to try things out. But at the same time, we also have to take care of ourselves. Now, I'm going on a hike in a new hiking trail, or a trail that's new to me,
Yep.
but I'm going with a group that I know. And I also know from other people that this is a fairly smooth, easy hike to do. And I know now that Aiden is real good at taking me hiking after the experience with our get together,
Yeah.
the after-site get together, and a hike afterwards, to know he can do it. So I have everything lined up to make sure that I have an enjoyable experience
Right.
and a new trail, which I may decide later. Maybe a couple other people who've never done it before will do the same trail once I've had that trial. And sometimes for us, it may be to have a trial with some other people and then know, oh, okay, this is how you do it, and then do it on their own.
Mm-hmm.
So there are lots of ways to get up that courage. But the thing is, we have to be committed to independence. That's what's really crucial in my mind, because it's just so easy to let everybody else take care of us.
I'm going to give you another C word to add on it. It's courage. If you don't have the courage to be able to stand up for yourself and to go enjoy and go find those things that are interesting to you, or go on a hike, go to coffee or whatever, when you get that courage to do that, you then get the courage to tell people what you do and do not need.
Yeah, I think the courage is more telling people that you need something, asking, because then it gets into our self-esteem, and the male self-esteem says you don't ask for direction. That's what frustrates spouses around the world, is that their husbands won't ask for direction. But courage in terms of doing things, in a sense, for me, it's not a matter of courage, it's a matter of necessity.
Right.
Because I get real bored if I'm doing the same thing over and over again. And I need to get out there, try things. It wasn't courage for me to get on and do a podcast. I didn't even know what a podcast was until Penn invited me to be on. And I said, oh, yeah, that wasn't courage, but that was an adventure to do that and to even run your own program. But the point is, the alternative is, to me, having a very dull existence. That's why I'm a little uncomfortable with the courage. I say, what's the alternative? The alternative is do the same thing over and over again. Right. And that is intolerable to me.
Well, as we wrap this up, my final thought on this: when we understand and address social isolation for people with whatever disability, it's really not about creating accessible spaces. It's about fostering connections, respect. So whether you're a caretaker, a friend, or a family member, it's really important for that person to feel included.
Yes.
And inclusion happens really when people are seen as equal participants, disability or not, and with the ability to direct their own care and, I guess, engage in those meaningful relationships. They thrive in society. They really take over. And those values kind of translate to everybody else around them. You empower not only yourself, but other people to do that as well. And then by promoting, the autonomy and listening and breaking down those social and physical barriers, we really create a more compassionate and inclusive world where no one feels invisible or isolated.
Yeah, and I would add to that is that we can make, regardless of what our disability is, we have the capacity to make a real life for ourselves if we're willing to try to take some risk, encourage people to kind of back off.
Sure.
And let us figure it out. It may take a little longer, but the rewards are so great.
Absolutely.
And, and also we were talking about earlier, we teach other people the possibilities with people who have a disability of any kind. We aren't going to be written off.
Right.
And that we're as much a part of society as anybody else. I know a lot of the people with disabilities are uncomfortable when I use the word differently able. But I think that is an important concept to know that we don't have to do things exactly the same way as a sighted person does.
Right.
But we find other ways to accomplish the same thing.
Yeah.
This has been another episode of Blindsight. Delighted to have you with us. And I want to remind you that we welcome feedback. You can call us at the feedback line at 720-712-8856 or by sending us an email at feedback@aftersight.org. So until next time, have a great week.